This is my son. His name is Bandit. He's a little demon devil, aren't you? Welcome back to the Imaginary Gallery. Once again, it is TJ, your host. This is an add-on to the last cognitive distortion topic, which was chapter 11 of Dr. David Byrne's book, which is always in the description. But I was just thinking about it because, remember, my history with this particular book was I went through a particularly crippling depression over 20 years ago. And I remember just like being desperate, thinking there's got to be an answer to get out of this. I've never been this way before, and how could I be changed now that whatever happened happened? It's like, where's the old me is pretty much how I felt. And when I read this particular book, it helped kind of steer me that back to who I really am and who I really was. Because you kind of get lost when you get mixed up with something. Well, one of the chapters I just covered, the last episode, was about the approval addiction. And I was thinking about it. Something just seemed kind of strange with it. Because, which I won't reiterate the whole thing. You can watch it, go back one. But basically, it's talking about us and our own self-thoughts and how we may, let's say, try to do something and we're turned down, and then we think, that's it, I'm no good, or something. Well, what I've learned is when you're dealing with the cluster B type person, they will actually become the enemy of this type of book, because I've had a few instances where, for example, in the previous episode, when we are expecting to be approved by others, and if we're not, we then cripple and suffer. Well, when you read this, it makes a lot of sense to understand that, like the mental patient that's having hallucinations, telling you you're Jesus or telling you you're a devil. Either way, you're not going to really give any credibility to that. Well, what I learned is when I've dealt with the cluster Bs, and there are covert methods of trying to insult or cause trouble, it kind of makes me think of they are playing the role of our own self-talk when we are involved in a situation where we're being rejected or we're being turned away or something, which obviously the cluster B is saying or doing whatever they're doing in order to get you to fall down that path of, oh my goodness, I'm being rejected, that must mean I'm horrible. And that's what they're trying to do. A bonus that came with the book is you can apply it in more than one type of situation. So yes, if you're suffering from depression because you applied for that special award and you were turned down and thought, oh, I'm a failure, well, you remember what you read and learn that, you know what, doesn't mean I'm a failure. Maybe they already had somebody, or whatever the other choices are. But when you're dealing with the cluster B, they will try to covertly, usually, get the same kind of reaction from you where you feel like you're not good enough or you feel like you've been rejected or whatever. And I found that by the lessons from this book, if I found myself dealing with such an encounter, I would be able to say, like, no, 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 and like counter it like the chapter mentions, where you realize that, well, just because I disagree with something you do doesn't mean that you yourself are a completely horrible person, totally. And a lot of times when the cluster Bs are arguing with you, they're saying things to you like, you are a worthless human being. You are and they're a verbal abuse or emotional abuse. They'll say stuff like that, and I think I learned from this particular book a way to counter that, and that makes them furious because they want you to take the bait. They want to tell you how awful you are based on some tiny, minute thing you did or didn't do, and if you're smarter and you've read this, I've actually sat down with one when they pulled a trick like that, one of their verbal attacks, and I'd say, look, you know what, you're wrong, and here's why. And I would read like I did to you in the last episode. And basically what's funny and sick is where someone criticizes you, and the book says that maybe that person's actually criticizing you because of some issue or problem they have. Maybe they're jealous of you. Maybe there's something else. But no matter what. But their goal, of course, is to insult your project or whatever it was to get you to feel like, oh, I must not be any good. She didn't like my presentation. But when you become armed with this, you learn like, well, that's her opinion. Maybe she's got something wrong. Well, when you're dealing with the cluster B and they're trying the same kind of attack, well, you might be like, well, clearly that's just something wrong with you here. I've gotten criticism from this. When I try to go through it, I'll get criticism like, all that book does is just tries to tell you to not be responsible for anything and make everything everyone else's problem. Which is kind of funny because that's like a projection. Because in their world, their problems are all caused by everybody else. So this is their chance to project onto a person who's tried to improve themselves in their position and has learned some things in the process, but they will still say that book, all it does is make you just deny anything's wrong with you. It's like, yeah, right, because your agenda is to try to make me think something's wrong, and it's really sick that these people are out there doing this, but that's another reason why I like the book, and the concepts and lessons can be applied in many ways, not just if you're a depressed person, which I got out of that a long time ago, but now, or lately, or whenever, when I deal with people who are basically using the techniques that we used to use on ourselves to feel miserable, well, when they try it on us, we have like a response to it, like, haha, well, actually that isn't the case. No, I'm not a completely worthless person. Yes, I made that one mistake, but I've made 1,000 victories too. But they don't want to hear any of that. They want you to fall into the crippling depression. So, to empower yourself, recommendation, and no, I don't know the author, and I see he has videos on YouTube as well, David Burns, but do yourself a favor if you ever felt inadequate at any time, or battled with these thought processes that make you go to hell, try it. It's very helpful. And it'll help you if you're dealing with a monster as well. They won't know what hit them.
Hi, I am the narcopath, and you ain't. Get over it. Ooh. Do you miss me? I'm gonna take it off for you. Oh. Oh. Nobody's got my feet. Am I good enough to play, boy? Don't you call me Amy Winehouse. I don't drink that much wine.
Tried to make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no. Yes, I've been bad, and then I come up and go no, no, no.
By the way, I am Amy Winehouse. I knew you probably could tell by my performance. Problem is, I'm a clone. This ain't the original Amy Winehouse body. Do you see any tattoos here? I don't think so. But I am still anorexic, and I am on drugs. But, do me a favor. Please stop human cloning. Because if I have to go out there on stage, I don't know if I can do it like I used to when I was real. But this serves as proof to you that Amy Winehouse is not dead. She is simply cloned in what obviously used to be a man's body, but I made some changes to it. Please stop human cloning. Now!